All right, hello everyone. Welcome to today's live discussion titled Adopting Automation for Efficiency. My name is Jason Freed and I'll be moderating the discussion today. Before we get started, a couple quick housekeeping messages. The audio is on mute for all attendees, but please feel free to ask any questions during the presentation in the chat box. We'll take about 5 minutes at the end to answer as many questions as we can. Also, the session is being recorded, and tomorrow we'll send an email to all the registrants with a link to the video and slides. So we have an awesome lineup of panelists with us today. I'm really happy that Scott and Eduardo and Rob are able to join us and break down this discussion about adopting automation for operational efficiencies. Really exciting topic that I'm excited to dive into. I will, ask our panelists to go around the room and introduce themselves a little bit, and I'll get started. So my name is Jason Freed. I'm with MDO. I'm our hospitality data evangelist here at MDO. I've been working with innovative hoteliers and technology leaders looking to disrupt and improve the hotel industry for about 15 years now. As our data evangelist, I share owner-operator stories, success stories like you'll hear today through data analysis and engaging content, looking to uncover profitability trends and build news around the numbers. With that, Rob, can you give us a little bit about yourself and Crescent Hotels?
Thank you, Jason. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rob Smith. I am Chief Financial Officer for Crescent Hotels and Resorts. Been in the hospitality industry for pushing 35 years. So we've seen a lot of change over those 35 years. Crescent currently has about 105 hotels as of today. We've had a lot of changes with our systems and automation over the last 7-8 years, so this ought to be an interesting topic. I do come from, like I said, from the business. Started off as a night auditor in college, and the rest is history. So that's about
great.
it.
I didn't know you're a night auditor at one point, Rob. So we've got at least two. We'll hear from Scott, because I know Eduardo has been one too. So we'll hear from Scott about that as well.
Back in the day when we had to do it manually.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that. Scott, you want to give us a little bit about yourself and Renaissance?
Yeah, so I actually was a night auditor too when I got started with my career back in college in Santa Barbara, California. But I'm currently the COO of Renaissance Hotels, which is based out of San Francisco, California. We have 9 hotels, soon to be 10, and I've been in this position for about 4 years, but been with the company Renaissance for over 20 years now. Started as a front office manager and kind of worked my way through there. So. Yeah, seen a lot in those 20 years. I'm excited to hear about a little automation here, but it sounds like we have similar stories here, Rob.
That's great. Thanks, Scott. Eduardo, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, so Eduardo Burkhardt here, doing enterprise business development at MDO. Have been here now for a year and a half, but before that, I also worked at another hospitality tech company, and most of my hotel operational experience has been in the select service space with Hyatt Hotels, Sonesta, and some full service as well. And actually, I can't imagine, one person that has worked hospitality that has not been a night auditor at some point. So it doesn't surprise me about Rob and Scott. But definitely, held the position down as well, and happy to be here, Jason, to, just talk about this topic.
Awesome. Appreciate it, guys. Appreciate you all being with us. So we're talking about automation, and I think, where I want to start is just sort of an overview of what automation is. So what automation actually means. To me, it can be super simple. The definition can be super simple, or it can be very complex, and it will be interesting to talk about how automation is sort of finding its way into the hospitality industry. Automation, I think, is any manual process previously done by a human that can now be done by technology. I think that's how it is defined. And to me, like I said, it could be simplest things that we use every day, right? That we use in everyday life. So for example, anybody who's tuning into this webinar today will automatically be sent an email with the recording tomorrow. You know, that's an example of automation, whereas previously marketers had to put together a list and put together an email and build the content for the email and send it out, and now that's automated. You know, think about things like Google Docs and Google Drive and how much that has sort of revolutionized the way we work. If we're, you know, if I'm in here working on these slides and I make a change, everybody gets an email. Those are, you know, some small examples of automation. And then it can be as complex as everybody knows into what's going on today with AI and generative language, chat GPT and things of that nature, which get really complex. So I'd like to go around the room and ask you guys, and maybe I'll just kind of go Rob, then Scott, then Eduardo for a lot of these questions. But Rob, what does automation mean to you, and what's it look like in your day-to-day?
Well, Jason, this is a great question, and it's could be a long-winded one, so we'll try and keep it simple. But I mean, from a finance standpoint, automation means dollars and the bottom line, getting more to the bottom line. But at the same time, you know, I like to tell people, it also means caution, because people tend to think of automation and systems as, you know, okay, we can turn that over to that and that's it. You got to constantly be watching this. Yes, there's some great things about systems, great things about automation. It still requires somebody to have some oversight. And, you know, that's one thing, if we get anything out of this today, is make sure that people still have the oversight. They still has to have some checks and balances. But the best thing is, you know, once those things are done, it does mean efficiency, and it takes a lot of excuses away from people as to why certain things didn't get done, because they've got something that tells them to do it. So in our business, we're looking to automate as much as possible. As you and I have talked about in the past, to take a lot of the mundane work off of the team at the property levels, so that they can focus on efficiencies and analyzing data and taking care of customers and running the properties.
Yeah, appreciate that. Scott, how about you? What's it mean to you?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think to kind of echo some of the things Rob was saying on the operational side, I'm always looking for ways that I can make my team's job easier, right? You know, to give them less the you know, of these tasks that just take time, in any way that we can automate some of those out so that they have more time to spend with our guests, to, you know, like you said, some of the things that are just simple that you don't really even think about, like an email confirmation that goes out, or you know, a reminder that maybe somebody had to send before in sales. Well, you know, now that salesperson can really take the time to, you know, try to go find a new client, or do something else where they were spending this time on the back end doing some of these other things. So to me, you know, that's what I'm always looking for inside of automation. And it is something that I definitely agree with Rob. You have to be very careful with, to make sure that you don't just set it and forget it. You need to constantly be looking at these things and saying, did this work? Did that not work? You know, and talking to your team members to make sure you're not, you know, kind of accidentally making their lives more difficult, right? By, you know, some of the automation and things. So, you know, to me, on that operational side, I'm just constantly, you know, looking for ways that I can take some tasks off of their plate so that, you know, they have more time to spend with our guests. And to me, there's a lot of dollars to that, right? If you're able to provide, you know, great customer service, because you're not stuck doing these other little things, you know, in the back office, and you're out, you know, have a general manager walking around and talking at breakfast instead of, you know, trying to pull a bunch of reports together for me so that I can, you know, make some decisions, then, you know, that's a much better use of their time.
Yeah, appreciate that. Eduardo, anything to add to what Rob and Scott have mentioned about automation?
Yeah, well, I mean, just automation equals time. I mean, the amount of time that's saved is can be used in so many other areas. And working in operations on the select service space, I mean, you really wear, you know, 10 hats at the same time. So if you can take even one task and automate that task, you know, it just the way that it frees up your day and gives you the ability to do more important and more meaningful, you know, things for your guests, for your hotel, for your colleagues. You know, it just that's where the value is for me, really. So yeah.
Yeah, just to follow up on that before we go to the next topic, I'll spring a tough one on you guys. This is the journalist in me coming out and making a tough question out of this. Both of you, Rob and Scott, talked about, taking tasks and making them simpler for employees, or using automation as almost a resource for employees. Are we at the point yet where we're talking about having fewer employees and able to operate with less staff because technology can automate some of these things, or is it still really a resource for the current employees to be more efficient? Scott or Rob?
Yeah, I'll jump on that one. I think well, it's two. First of all, yes, it is a resource for current staff to be more efficient. However, the ultimate goal, speaking from a third-party management and from an owner standpoint, the ultimate goal is to reduce your cost on your labor.
Yep.
However, you've also got it's a fine line. You also need to make sure that you're always taking care of your guests. So you need to have those people. Do you reallocate those resources to where you want to have them? But ultimately, yes, you do want to say, because you're asked to be constantly being asked to do more with less, okay? And so in order to do that, you have to have the tools to do that. I mean, if you look at a 400-room full-service property in Miami in 1990, their accounting department had 8 people in it. That same accounting department today with centralized accounting is probably going to have 2-3 people in
Yep.
it. Okay.
Yep. What about you, Scott? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it was, through COVID and some of the hiring issues we had were kind of forced upon us as well, right? So you just had to think outside the box just simply because we couldn't find the people to do certain things. And so I think that, to me, at least in Renaissance, pushed forward some of the automation stuff because we had no other choice, right? You had to say, I have this many people that can do this. We have to get creative about how we can do this better. I still think the hospitality industry is a little bit behind the times in some of these things, where some of the automation is by the ability for some of these systems to be able to kind of talk with each other, and so that's kind of taken us back. But I mean, with our side on Renaissance, I mean, we're looking to again, whatever the best service is for the guests, not necessarily to cut employees out or to reduce head costs, but to look at how we can make these people more efficient to provide better service, which to me has dollars associated with that.
Yeah, so sometimes when we talk about automation, it's kind of it's a broad term and it's really high level. I'd like to get into a little bit of the specifics around hotel operations. And I've had previous discussions with Scott and Rob about this. Scott, I'd love for you to address, I know you guys are doing some really cool things on the housekeeping and maintenance front with automating a lot of those tasks and managing those employees. And then Rob, I know you've done a lot on sort of centralizing data and reports and taking some of that manual work off of the property level and taking it to the regional level. I'd love if you guys could each address how you're using automation to operate more efficiently in those areas. I'll start with you, Scott.
Yeah, so I mean, I think speaking specifically towards housekeeping and maintenance, we're looking to make sure, I mean, the old school way of, and when I say old school, this wasn't very long ago for a lot of the hotels that we've either purchased or been around, was to simply have like a walkie-talkie or some pieces of paper or, something like that to move things back and forth between people. And, that creates a lot of inefficiency and a lack of accountability, right? When we're looking at these things to say, I'm sure everybody that's been a general manager or a regional or something like that has a story of a maintenance, a guest coming to complain saying, hey, I told you about this leak in my room, and the GM or the maintenance person is pointing towards the front desk, and front desk is saying, I told this person about that and I did this. And so what we've really put our focus on is streamlining that process, making sure that we're getting the information to the right person at the right time, that we're tracking those things the right way, that we're keeping the guest in the loop, right? So almost think about it as like a DoorDash or an Uber that tells you where your Uber driver is, right? We're telling you, hey, we know this is going on. We're gonna fix it so that if you're at our hotel in Napa and you're out enjoying the day, you can feel pretty good that one of our team members is gonna take care of that. And then instead, again, with some of this automation, what would happen in the past, even if you had the automation to keep track of some of those things, when the maintenance person would finish it, it would just, whatever, hang the piece of paper back on the wall and nothing more went to that. Now, when they press this button to say they're done with it, the guest automatically gets a text letting them know that it's taken care of. So now I'm not going to come by the front desk. Again, that front desk member can spend some more time selling a reservation, telling people about the wineries, doing all those things. And we've eliminated a half an hour of their day just simply picking up the phone and calling the guest and saying, hey, your toilet's fixed, whatever that may be. And so those things are really important. They may seem really small when you look at them just, on an individual level, but when you think about how many times that happens in an example like Rob says of a 400 room hotel, there's a lot of time, right, that you can automate your way through.
Yeah, that's great. And, Rob, when we talked about this idea of centralizing a lot of the data and the reports and, sort of making the back office at a hotel run more smoothly and taking some of those tasks and handling them at the regional level. I know Crescent's been doing a lot of that. You told me a great story about, you used to cut checks, right? In terms of payroll, you used to come in one day a week and write and actually cut checks. I wonder if you could repeat that for our audience.
Oh yeah, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that from a corporate standpoint, every Thursday, the team outside my office here, they do their check run. And even during COVID, I'd shoot in the office just to do nothing but sign checks. Nowadays, I might sign 4 checks a week. That's not saying we only pay 4 vendors a week. We do pay more than that, quite a few, but everything is automated. And again, over the last 8 years or so, we've gone nearly paperless, which is also something we're very proud of. From a property standpoint, Jason, that we have our centralized accounting office up in State College, PA, and they handle 90% of the finance reporting for our 90% of our properties. We still have decentralized, of course, but we've got a lot of that stuff flowing through there. But the bigger issues are things like purchasing and purchase order systems and procurement systems. And we've had that in place for many years now. And again, when that started, the only thing that they came out with was a purchase order. And nowadays that's become a procure to pay system and full-fledged. And so I always tell people, if I walk onto a property and somebody hands me a paper purchase order, we've got a problem. Because really you shouldn't have that anymore. That's something, you don't need to have a person running around a hotel getting signatures on a PO. They should be all automated. So there's those things. There's business intelligence. And again, we talked about being a night auditor and all the paperwork we did back then. Nowadays, I walk in every morning, the first thing I do is I can pull up the entire portfolio on my computer. And if I see something that stands out, I can shoot a note out to my SVP of finance and say, what's going on here? All right. Doesn't matter where I'm at, whether I'm stuck in the United Club at San Francisco, I can look at anything I want. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. Eduardo, from your experience on the operations side and now, helping our customers use MDO, what areas are you seeing automated? And I wonder if you could follow up on a little bit about what Rob said about paperless and talk about the benefits there.
Yeah, well, so where I always see the biggest opportunity, and where, especially groups, hotel groups that have even anywhere more than 5 hotels, it's in that centralized access to all those reports, because every night all those reports are being archived into a certain platform, whatever platform that is that they're using, and in this case MDO, and anybody can just access those reports, so they don't have to waste time going back to certain properties, certain GMs or the night auditor. So I think for groups that are just a couple hotels, it's not that big of a deal. It is great to have these reports automated and give those night auditors a little bit more time. Also, cut down on certain resources like paper and ink. But really, when you have a bigger portfolio, that aspect, that automation aspect, and being able to have all those reports centralized and your fingertips, and be able to communicate easily. So it's not copy and pasting, downloading into an email. It's really being able to communicate on that platform that just makes operations flow a lot simpler.
Yeah, that's great. Appreciate it. Let's talk about, I want to go back to something, Scott, you mentioned, and I think, Scott, you're probably the best one to answer this, because you work, sort of in a guest-facing role as well. How have you automated some of this guest-facing stuff? Have you experimented at all with chatbots or sort of virtual assistants at any of your properties? I think something was important that you said earlier was, you're taking some of these tasks off of the front desk agent so they can spend more time with the guest, right? Or they can bring better value to the guest. Talk about how you've experimented with some of that stuff.
Yeah, well, my opinion on all this is always, kind of evolving by, it gets quicker now. It used to be over years, but it seems like now it's more over weeks. We've experimented with some things like, guest text, right? That's a big one in our industry right now. And there's been certain platforms that we tried that had some AI chatbots built into it. What we found out is, through talking to our guests, is they didn't really feel like they wanted, if you're in a hotel, you want a service level that's being provided with that, and you want to really, kind of talk to somebody. And so instead of having some of those chatbot things communicate with the guest, we kind of went the opposite direction and said, okay, we can take care of some of these inefficient things like, big line at the front desk of people asking us when breakfast are or when, checkout is. We can easily answer some of those questions by text. We took the next step of saying, okay, and at the bottom of that text, we're going to put the person's name at the bottom of it, right? So that they still feel like they're getting some of that customer service. And where we chose to put the automation was more into what happens after that text comes in, what you do with that, right? So when that text comes in, instead of having to have the person then again take a piece of paper and write it down and stick it on the wall and hopefully the maintenance guy comes by at some point, we're taking that directly out of there, moving it to that maintenance person without the front desk having to do anything. And then, they're more efficient to get that job done quicker on that side instead of, taking the time to walk all the way down or to get some of those things. So to me, in automation, it's more about the operational aspects of it than the actual communication to guests. And I think that that's what people are, and like I said, my opinion on this is always, I've been amazed at some of the things that some of this AI can do. And I'm sure it will get better over time, but where we currently stand, at least in my opinion, it's not quite there yet to really provide that excellent level of customer service that we expect to give our customers.
Jason, if I might add on to that, because I'm really glad Scott said it the way that he did, because that's one of the things, some of the systems we're talking about and the automation of things that don't affect our guests, that are data driven and affect what we do is one thing. But one of the things, when you're dealing with a guest and that personal interaction, that is a big thing. You have to be very cautious about what you're trying to do. If somebody's sitting there in front of a kiosk trying to do something, they can't get it. They're going to do nothing but be frustrated, and that's going to come back to haunt you in the long run.
100%.
So it sounds like neither of you guys are moving to or big fans of the, employee-free hotel, right? Where there's no employees on staff at all. You just walk in, you check in, you get your room key via phone, and you walk straight to your room. It sounds like both of you guys are proponents of the personalization aspect of hospitality, right? What really hospitality is at its core, and that's taking care of the guest.
Taking care of the guests, taking care of your own team members, right? I mean, the way that these things go, I mean, you look at our hotels, and I think I was kind of briefly saying that before we came on here, Jason, but we've won all sorts of awards and things just because that's our number one priority is, making sure everybody that comes in that door has a good time. And, the amazing part of that is we have these customers in certain locations, leisure locations that will just come back. They don't look at, the rates. They don't look at anywhere else. It's like, I had a good time with Scott at that hotel and I'm just going back. And that's a big deal. There's a lot of dollars to that.
Yeah, appreciate that. I'm going to skip ahead a couple here because I think we hit on these. But what I'd like to do, Rob, is I'd like to go to you. And you talked a little bit about pulling that data and those reports from each of the property and putting them into sort of a view for corporate or for regional to look at. How are you doing that each day? And talk a little bit about what data corporate wants to see.
Well, we've got everything coming right in from the PMS systems at the properties. They're set up automatically when we transition a property. They're set up to come into our business intelligence network. Everything comes in on a daily basis. We get all of the information from there. That's consolidated, and quite honestly, I can go in. There's more data in our business intelligence platform than anybody could ever really want. And I say that because I shouldn't say it that way, because quite honestly, people keep coming up with new ways to look at the same thing. But literally, we've got 10 reports that might say the same thing depending on who wants to look at it.
Yep.
As you and I talked about, the sales and commercial team, they want to look at one bit of data. That may just be your room, market segments, etc. Your operations guys are going to look at something else. Your finance team, they're going to go through, they're going to look at what's coming in from revenues, dollars, etc. And then they're also going to go through the expenses. We take all that, that's all coming into business intelligence. They sit there and they go through and they'll use that same system based on the history coming in, and they'll be forecasting and budgeting that same system. But we can look at it from that information. We can work out graphs. We have set up owner reporting modules that are in there so that we can hit a button and kick out the same information for every owner. And then we can turn around and we can customize that owner report if we need it. That, of course, all flows into the month-end report package. So the data coming out of there, it's truly amazing what you get out of the systems today. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time. We didn't have any of that stuff. You had to sit there and somebody say do a graph, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I was sitting there trying to figure out with a ruler and a piece of paper, trying to figure out what that looked like. Nowadays, I punch a button today and I can get everything I need.
Yeah. Yeah, Scott, I'm curious your position on this. Being a COO, I know that you're not going to every property every day. At least I don't think you are. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
But what are the things that you're looking at today? What is that data from the property level that you want to see? And then I guess part B of that, is there anything you're missing currently? Is there anything you wish you could see but you can't?
Yeah, no, I mean, we've spent a lot of time, I think, very similar to what Rob, was talking about, getting all the data into one place where we can look at it. We're not spending a bunch of times having the general managers or some night auditor have to put them all and go to these. I remember back to the days we had to go to 10 different places to get the information that you wanted, and then you still wouldn't have anything. I think the important part to me is the way that you take that data. There's a lot of things that maybe on Rob and my level, we would understand that data and be able to do certain things with it. I think it's important when you have the data that you get it into a format that's easy enough for the people that need it to understand it. I've seen that a lot of times where it comes across and you hand it to somebody, a general manager, assistant general manager, a restaurant manager, something along those lines, and they kind of look at it and you can clearly tell it's like they have no idea what they're looking at, right? And so in order for that data to be effective and use it the right way, you need to be able to get it into a format that they can clearly understand and understand what their goals are with that and what they're supposed to do with it. I'll never be amazed by the fact that when we take over some of these hotels and you look at the data with somebody and they have no idea, right? But they've been looking at it every day for the last 3 years, and so to me that's a very important thing is to just figure that out.
Yeah, Eduardo, I wonder if you have anything to add on this data aggregation. What are you seeing MDO customers looking for today when it comes to BI?
Yeah, well, so really, I wanted to address actually that question that's on screen right now, because I do talk to a lot of customers and hotel groups out there that are taking the right steps to automate in certain processes, but are still missing the mark a little bit. And I'll give you an example. to where when I used to work at a hotel, there were, I was the AGM, and I would have to upload certain reports up to a share drive, and then I would forget it at that point. But at the corporate office, obviously there's somebody taking all those reports and putting it into different places. So it's great that we're automating, hotel groups are automating a certain portion, but then there's still room for error. And to kind of Rob's point at the beginning, there's always has to be somebody looking over it just to make sure that somebody's not, putting something into a folder that's not supposed to, or renaming it. And those are the places where, we get to help hotel groups understand where there might be some inefficiencies, where they can improve, and hopefully, help them in their automation journey.
Awesome. Well, guys, honestly, we are approaching time here. I'm gonna open it up just for any additional comments on automation in general. Anything that Rob, Scott, Eduardo, you guys wanted to share on automation that we didn't get to today?
No, I mean, I think automation is going to play a big role, and I'm hopeful that the hospitality industry will continue to move that forward, right? That more of the players, the PMSs, the other systems will start being a little bit friendlier to each other, so that we can share this data and ultimately give our guests a better experience, give our employees an easier job, right? That's what I see that automation can do. But in order to do that, we need to kind of embrace it as an industry. And really spend the time doing it.
Rob, any final takeaways from you?
Yeah, I think I agree with what Scott said. I mean, the biggest thing that all of us are trying to do is take care of our guests, and the systems give us the ability to have our teams focus on the guests and not take care of the mundane things. There are some things that are still working better than others. As we talked about, I'm not ready to turn over the entire property to a machine.
Yep.
But turning certain things over to a machine gives us the ability to do that, collect that data, look at the data, analyze the data, and say, okay, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And that, because ultimately we figure out what we're doing wrong, that affects our guests. Of course, then there's, again, I'm always going to look at things from a financial side. Yep. What is going to drive that bottom line? Do we find efficiencies and that drives the bottom line? Do we get better guest services, drives our rate up? That brings our bottom line. So it all works together. Right?
Yep.
I think it's all about finding that balance between the two, just like you said there, Rob. Finding that balance between where automation can really help this side and help that side, and may hurt this side, and just trying to find that even balance.
Awesome, that's fantastic, valuable insight, guys. Really appreciate those takeaways, and really appreciate you taking the time to join us today on this live discussion. With that, thank you attendees for attending as well. If you've got any follow-up questions, you can shoot any of us a note and we will get back to you, and you'll get a replay of this webinar tomorrow. I appreciate everybody's time, and with that, we'll close it out. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.